It's the Side Quest Podcast.
Usually when we talk about like a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of mechanical precision.
Right, it's supposed to be black and white.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line,
Yeah.
and the doctor just points to the film, right? Broken, it's binary, it's totally visible.
Yeah, it's a simple cause and effect.
But if you step into the world of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs or what we used to call UFOs, that x-ray machine just completely shatters.
Oh, it falls apart entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're wading through this diagnostic landscape where the evidence isn't just like murky, it's actually actively fighting you.
It's hostile evidence, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we are currently sitting in what is, well, undeniably the most consequential period of this whole phenomenon since the 1940s.
Without a doubt, the landscape today is just completely unprecedented.
I mean, we've got sitting presidents issuing disclosure directives. We have new laws that are, forcing intelligence agencies to empty their vaults.
And government websites literally crashing from billions of hits.
Yes, billions. And on top of all that, you have these highly credentialed intelligence officials who are risking actual prison time to testify under oath.
Yeah, which is really the core of why this moment is different. The sheer volume of raw data hitting the public right now is just staggering.
It's overwhelming, which is why we are doing this deep dive today for you, the listener. We're unpacking this massive document from June 16, 2026, called UAP Reverse Engineering Programs, a global overview.
And our objective with this material is it's incredibly specific. We are basically acting as a filter.
Right, because there's so much noise out there.
Exactly. We're applying a rigorous filter to separate the confirmed documented reality from the sworn but, unverified claims of whistleblowers.
And separating all of that from the pure, wild technological speculation.
Right. We want to map out the structural mechanisms of what's actually happening in Washington, what's going on inside defense contractors, and what's in the skies. And I should emphasize, we are doing this without taking any sides on the political maneuvering driving these recent disclosures.
Yeah, we're totally leaving the politics at the door.
Yeah.
So to build that map, you have to look at the bedrock.
You have to start at the beginning.
Right, because a modern whistleblower claiming we have crashed saucers in 2026 doesn't make any sense unless you understand how the U.S. government handled the initial panic right after World War II.
And that initial panic, interestingly enough, had absolutely nothing to do with little green men.
No, not at all. The military was just terrified of Soviet engineering.
Exactly. The intelligence apparatus in the late 1940s was operating in this state of, near total paranoia.
I mean, the Cold War was basically freezing over.
Right. So when reports of anomalous craft started flooding in, their immediate pragmatic assumption was that Soviet scientists had somehow achieved a massive leap in aeronautics.
Like maybe they were using captured German scientists or something?
Exactly. So the U.S. established Project Sign in 1948, then Grudge in 1949, and eventually Project Blue Book, which ran for 17 years until 1969.
And Blue Book was massive, right? They cataloged, over 12,000 sightings?
Over 12,000, yeah.
But the crazy part is, when they finally shut Blue Book down, 701 of those cases were officially marked as unidentified.
Right, which is a significant number.
It's huge, meaning the most powerful military on Earth investigated 701 distinct events and basically concluded we have absolutely no idea what is flying in our own airspace.
But here is the critical thing about Blue Book that people often misunderstand. It was not a rigorous scientific inquiry.
Wait, really? It was presented as one, wasn't it?
It was presented as one, but functionally it was largely a public relations desk.
Wow. Okay, break that down.
Well, the internal bureaucracy of Blue Book was designed to alleviate public panic and just close cases. That was the metric for success.
So they were just trying to clear their desks.
Basically, yeah. The mechanism was administrative triage. So if a commercial pilot reported a silver disc, the Blue Book officers were heavily pressured to assign a conventional label to it.
Oh, like swamp gas or whatever.
Exactly. Swamp gas, temperature inversions, weather balloons, anything to just get the file off their desk. They essentially weaponized administrative banality to make the problem look boring.
Okay, which brings us to the ultimate administrative nightmare, Roswell, July 1947.
The big one.
The big one. The Army Air Forces literally issue a press release explicitly stating they recovered a flying disc. And then, within hours, they violently yank it back.
Never mind, it's just a weather balloon.
Exactly. And that retraction is like the permanent fault line in public trust.
Oh, absolutely. You can't unring that bell. And the official explanation mutated over the decades, you know?
Yeah, didn't it change multiple times?
It did. The weather balloon story eventually became Project Mogul.
Right, the acoustic sensors.
Right, Mogul was a highly classified program that flew these acoustic sensors on high-altitude balloons to basically listen for the sound waves of Soviet nuclear tests.
Okay, so that actually makes sense as a cover story.
It does. But then, decades later, the military tried to explain away the persistent local rumors of alien bodies at the crash site.
Oh, right, the crash test dummies.
Yeah, they claimed the bodies were just anthropomorphic crash test dummies from high-altitude parachute drops, but historical records show those drops didn't even happen until years after 1947.
Man, talk about fumbling the narrative. Even the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, they put out that definitive report in March 2024, firmly concluding Roswell was just a Project Mogul balloon.
Which is the official stance, yeah.
But, you know, think about what that initial 1947 retraction did to the psychology of the American public.
It planted a seed of distrust.
Exactly. The moment the military issues a terrifying statement and then aggressively walks it back, you plant a seed of institutional suspicion that just never stops growing.
And while the Air Force was running PR with Blue Book, the CIA was quietly building a very different kind of machine in the background.
What's fascinating here is how the CIA got involved, right?
Well, the CIA formed a special study group in 1952 because the sheer volume of sightings was actually clogging up their intelligence channels.
They couldn't get real work done because of all the UFO reports.
Exactly. And they determined that about 10% of those cases were what they called incredible.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning they entirely rejected both Soviet and extraterrestrial origins for those specific cases, but they acknowledged that the physics being described completely defied explanation.
Oh, wow. So they knew something real was happening.
Yes. However, the CIA's primary response wasn't scientific at all. It was counterintelligence.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is one of the most explosive confirmations in the 2026 report.
It really is. The CIA realized that public hysteria over UFOs could potentially be exploited by the Soviets to mask a real attack.
So they stepped in to manipulate the narrative.
Actively, yes. They managed and manipulated what the public believed.
And we're talking about the actual mechanics of a disinformation smokescreen here. I mean, in 2025, the Wall Street Journal published this massive investigation, which ARO actually corroborated, by the way.
Which was a huge deal when ARO backed that up.
Right. And it detailed how the Pentagon deliberately planted UFO myths near sensitive testing sites like Area 51.
The mechanics of it are just brilliantly cynical. I mean, think about it. If you are developing the U-2 spy plane or the F-117 Nighthawk,
The stealth bomber.
right, and a civilian happens to catch a glimpse of it, you have a massive security breach on your hands.
But if you've already seeded the local community with rumors of alien tech,
Exactly. If your counterintelligence officers seed the area with rumors of captured alien technology, that civilian doesn't report a classified stealth jet.
they report a flying saucer.
Precisely. You have actively discredited your own witness before they even open their mouth.
That is wild. They even went so far as to fabricate an entirely fictional alien investigation program, right?
Yankee Blue, yes.
Right. They introduced Yankee Blue to military personnel as, like, a hazing ritual, purely to muddy the waters.
Just throwing noise into the system.
So imagine you are a civilian investigator. You know, you were trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle, but the person who manufactured the puzzle is standing over your table, just aggressively throwing meticulously crafted fake puzzle pieces into your pile.
It's an impossible task.
You aren't just trying to find the truth. You are actively fighting a multi-million-dollar deception engine.
Exactly.
And this is my big question on this. If the government is willing to fabricate an alien program just to hide a stealth bomber, doesn't that instantly compromise every single UFO sighting in history?
It certainly casts a long shadow over all of them.
The government basically uses aliens as a convenient, self-discrediting smokescreen.
And this is the agonizing baseline of the UAP phenomenon. The disinformation is a documented historical fact. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Right, it's confirmed.
So when we pivot to the 21st century, you have to keep this deception in mind because the narrative completely inverts.
Okay, what do you mean by inverts?
Well, publicly, the government continues to dismiss UAPs as optical illusions or sensor glitches. But privately, they start funneling millions of dollars into secret programs to actively study them.
Right, enter AATIP and AATIP.
running from 2007 to 2012.
Yeah, and Senator Harry Reid secured $22 million in black budget funding for this. And for anyone listening who doesn't know how a black budget works, Congress basically passes defense appropriations with these classified line items.
Right. The money is legally authorized.
Right. It's legal, but its specific destination and purpose are completely hidden from the public and honestly even from most of Congress.
Exactly. And this $22 million was managed by the Defense Intelligence Agency,
The DIA.
specifically by a scientist named Dr. James Lukatsky.
And the mandate for these programs was, what, to investigate anomalous sightings?
To investigate sightings, collect physical data, and this is key research advanced propulsion.
Right. Didn't they famously investigate Skinwalker Ranch in Utah?
They did, which drew massive internal criticism because it started bleeding into paranormal phenomena, which made a lot of defense officials very uncomfortable.
I can imagine.
But the structural takeaway here is that the Defense Intelligence Agency was officially attempting to understand technologies that they fundamentally believed were operating in our airspace.
And Dr. Lukatsky took this much further recently, didn't he?
In his 2025 book, yes.
Right. He claims he actually had access to material properties from recovered UAPs. He describes, like, structural materials that are incredibly lightweight but possess unimaginable tensile strength.
Craft with no visible seams or rivets.
Yeah. And materials capable of withstanding ultra-high G-forces that would literally turn a human pilot to soup.
But we have to apply our filter strictly here.
Right, the facts versus speculation filter.
Exactly. Lukatsky is a highly credentialed DIA scientist, obviously, but his claims in that book are fundamentally unverified.
It's just him saying it.
Right. They are a single data point.
Right.
However, what is officially confirmed by the U.S. government is the KONA BLUE proposal.
Oh, KONA BLUE. This was declassified by ARO in April 2024, right?
Yes, and it is where the bureaucratic paper trail gets truly bizarre.
It's so weird. This was a 2008 proposal sent to the Department of Homeland Security to establish a special access program.
A SAP, which is a highly restricted security protocol.
Right. And the explicit written goal of KONA BLUE was acquiring and reverse engineering advanced aerospace vehicles.
Which is basically the bureaucratic euphemism for non-human craft.
Right. Now, the proposal was ultimately rejected by the DHS in 2012. And the Pentagon's official explanation for the rejection is that, well, no extraterrestrial crafts or bodies were ever actually collected.
So there was nothing to reverse engineer.
Exactly. But look at the paradox here. You have sitting U.S. senators and top-tier intelligence scientists drafting multi-million-dollar proposals to build a bureaucratic apparatus to reverse engineer alien spaceships.
It's a huge bureaucratic lift.
Huge. So if the U.S. government genuinely possessed zero crashed craft, were these senators just engaging in a wildly expensive fishing expedition like, hey, let's build the laboratory first and just hope Asasa crashes next week?
That's the KONA BLUE paradox right there. And it exposes a profound structural fracture within the intelligence community.
A fracture. Meaning what?
Well, the declassification of that document actually terrified certain officials because it proves that individuals at the absolute highest levels of government, people with top secret compartmented clearances, genuinely believed the technology existed.
And that it was being hidden from them.
Exactly. They believed it was being hidden by other factions within the military-industrial complex. They drafted KONA BLUE as a legal mechanism to try and force that hidden technology out into the open under DHS oversight.
Oh, wow. So it's literally proof of an internal Cold War over UAP data.
Yes.
A bureaucratic Cold War.
And that internal Cold War violently spilled into the public eye in 2023 because, I mean, the paper trail of KONA BLUE is fascinating, but a paper trail is just bureaucracy. Right. It's just memos.
The narrative permanently shifts when the actual people operating inside these hidden factions start talking to Congress.
This is what we call the whistleblower watershed.
Yes.
The category of evidence fundamentally evolves here. We move from declassified memos to sworn legal testimony.
Under oath.
Under oath. It really began with Luis Elizondo in 2017. He was the former director of AATIP, and he stated publicly that phenomena vastly outperforming our military inventory are absolutely real.
But the real paradigm shift was David Grusch, right? June 2023.
Grusch is the turning point.
Because Grusch isn't some peripheral figure. He was a senior civilian at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. He was a former Air Force intelligence officer,
He had the clearances.
highest clearances, and he sits before the House Oversight Committee and under oath states that the United States has been running a multi-decade crash retrieval and reverse engineering program since the 1930s.
And he didn't mince words. He claimed they have intact and partially intact craft.
And non-human biologics.
Right. But the crucial distinction with Grusch, and we have to be very clear about this, is the nature of his evidence. Grusch provided what we call credentialed hearsay.
Okay, clarify that for the listener.
He was incredibly specific during his testimony that he did not personally stand in a hangar and touch a craft.
Right, he didn't kick the tires on a spaceship.
Exactly. However, his official duty on the UAP task force was to investigate these exact programs. In that official capacity, he interviewed dozens of hostile and cooperative witnesses who did possess firsthand knowledge.
And he reviewed classified photography and program documents, right?
Yes. And he didn't just leak this to a reporter at a bar. He filed a formal legal complaint with the Intelligence Community Inspector General.
The ICIG.
Yeah.
And the mechanics of that complaint are really everything here.
They are. The Inspector General's office exists to audit the intelligence community. That's their job.
Right. So when Grusch filed his complaint, the IG investigated his claims, they interviewed his witnesses, and they made a formal legal determination that Grusch's complaint was credible and urgent.
Which is a massive legal threshold to cross.
Massive. Grusch was granted congressional immunity to testify. He exposed himself to severe perjury charges if he was lying.
And once Grusch kicked that door open, others started walking through it.
Yeah. In 2024, Jake Barber comes forward. He's an Air Force veteran, a helicopter pilot, and he claims firsthand retrieval experience.
Right. He says he physically participated in securing a downed craft.
But if we apply our filter here...
Applying the filter, yes. Barber represents firsthand claims, but he completely lacks the institutional oversight credentials that Grusch had.
So we categorize his statements as entirely unverified at this point.
Exactly. But the leaks just keep accelerating. By November 2024, you have journalist Michael Schellenberger leaking a 12-page document to Congress.
Oh, regarding Immaculate Constellation.
Yes, an alleged unacknowledged special access program, or USAP.
And the claim is that this USAP is specifically designed to ingest UAP data from all across the military, quarantine it, and hide it from any conventional military or congressional oversight.
Right, it's a data black hole. And while the whistleblowers outline the bureaucracy of this black hole, you also have hard science attempting to validate the physical effects of these encounters.
Like Dr. Gary Nolan.
Exactly. Dr. Nolan is an incredibly respected pathology professor at Stanford. He was actually approached by the CIA to analyze medical profiles of intelligence personnel.
Personnel who had, close proximity encounters with UAPs?
Yes.
And what kind of medical profiles are we talking about?
He observed anomalous injuries, specifically cellular damage to the basal ganglia of the brain.
Wow.
And blood profiles that resembled radiation sickness, but without the typical ionizing radiation signatures you'd expect from, say, a nuclear reactor.
The damage was localized and highly specific.
Highly specific. Now, Dr. Nolan is rigorous. He never claims the source of these injuries is extraterrestrial.
Right, he's a scientist.
But he firmly establishes that an anomalous, highly energetic physical phenomenon is actively interacting with human biology.
Okay, let's pull back for a second and just look at the sheer scale of what Grusch and Schellenberger are alleging.
It's massive.
They are essentially describing a multi-generational, highly illegal corporate embezzlement scheme. But instead of defense executives skimming billions to, buy private islands.
They are secretly funding the concealment of alien technology.
Right. But here's where it gets really tricky for me. How does a secret involving potentially thousands of people across the military and private sector remain completely watertight for 80 years?
It defies human nature.
It does. How does a mechanic not accidentally walk out with a scrap of alien metal in his lunchbox?
And that right there is the most potent argument against the entire crash retrieval hypothesis. The human variable. People talk, people get drunk, people make mistakes.
Exactly.
But Grusch actually addressed this vulnerability directly. He didn't just give Congress a compelling campfire story, he provided them with a literal map.
Right, in the SEIF.
In a closed-door SEIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. It's a room physically engineered to block all acoustic and electronic surveillance.
And in that room, Grusch handed the Intelligence Committees a list.
A list of specific individuals, program names, and actual physical locations.
So he basically gave them the names of the people who do have the metal in their lunchboxes.
Exactly. He laid the legal groundwork for Congress to issue targeted, inescapable subpoenas.
Which obviously sets up a massive collision course with the Pentagon.
An unavoidable collision.
Because while Grusch is actively handing over lists of secret programs, the Pentagon's AIRO office releases its historical record report in March 2024.
Right.
And that report firmly states, without any caveat, that they found absolutely zero verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial technology and zero evidence of any government cover-up.
It was a blanket denial.
So, mechanically speaking, how can both of these realities exist at the same time? How does the Pentagon's official investigative body find an empty room, while Grusch claims that same room is packed to the ceiling with alien hardware?
Well, the 2026 report dissects this perfectly by examining what they call the 4 pillars of Grusch's alleged architecture of secrecy.
Okay, let's break down those 4 pillars.
If these 4 pillars are structurally sound, AARO would naturally find nothing simply because AARO wouldn't have the legal authority to look in the right places.
All right, pillar 1, budget exploitation. Look, if you want to study a crashed saucer, you need billions of dollars. And you can't exactly go to Congress and ask for an alien research budget.
They'd laugh you out of the room.
Right. So according to Grusch, defense contractors overcharge the government on legitimate, totally mundane contracts. You charge an extra $3 billion for the development of a standard cargo plane, and you siphon that excess cash directly into the black program.
Which leads into Pillar 2, which involves IR&D, or independent research and development.
Explain how that works legally.
By law, defense contractors are allowed to use a portion of their government revenue to self-fund internal research. It's meant to foster innovation, build better radars, that sort of thing.
Sure, makes sense.
But Grusch alleges that these companies use this legal loophole to fund UAP reverse engineering entirely off the government books.
Because it's classified as internal corporate research.
Exactly. The government has severely limited auditing rights into internal corporate R&D.
Wow. Which leads directly to Pillar 3, private company hosting. This is essentially a geographic shell game.
A very clever one.
You don't park the crashed saucer at a standard military base where a random general might just stumble across it. You stash the materials at private aerospace firms like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or Battelle.
And the legal distinction here is absolutely critical. If the Department of Defense holds a document or a piece of physical material, it is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA.
Right, citizens can legally compel its release.
But a private corporation is completely exempt from FOIA.
So if the government quietly transfers ownership of anomalous material to a private contractor,
it vanishes behind a wall of corporate intellectual property law. It becomes legally untouchable by the public or even most of the government.
That is infuriatingly brilliant. And then you have Pillar 4. USAP compartmentalization, unacknowledged special access programs.
Right. Now, a standard SAP has strict security, sure, but its existence is at least acknowledged to specific congressional committees.
The Gang of 8, usually.
Right. A USIP, however, is so deeply buried that its very existence is denied to everyone except a microscopic read-on list of individuals with an absolute, undeniable need to know.
They operate under Title 50 authority, right?
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Title 50 governs covert intelligence operations rather than Title 10 authority, which governs standard military operations.
So that legal maneuver deliberately excludes the standard armed services oversight committees from having any visibility whatsoever.
They literally don't even know what questions to ask because the program technically doesn't exist.
So if you apply those 4 pillars to AARO, the Pentagon's investigative office, what happens? AARO is essentially a night watchman hired to inspect a massive corporate building.
I love this analogy.
He has a standard set of keys, right? He walks the halls, he checks the standard laboratories, and he reports back, hey, I've checked the building. There is no alien spaceship here.
And he's telling the truth from his perspective.
You're telling the truth. But his keys don't work on the elevator that goes to the corporate subbasement. And the corporation legally denies the subbasement even exists.
The night watchman analogy is mechanically perfect, and it is so crucial for listeners to understand that this level of extreme, illegal compartmentalization isn't just science fiction.
No, it's happened before.
It is a proven historical reality. I mean, look back at the 1970s. The Church Committee uncovered MKUltra, which was a massive CIA program involving mind control and human experimentation.
Unreal stuff.
And it had successfully operated in the shadows, entirely hidden from congressional oversight, for decades. So the infrastructure to hide massive illegal programs It already exists.
But, the 2026 report notes a massive psychological hurdle for the public here. They term it the asymmetry of evidence.
The legal logic of how they could hide it is perfectly sound.
Right, but the absence of public proof, the fact that we don't have, like, a piece of a spaceship under a microscope on live television, forces the public to rely entirely on trust.
Which is in short supply.
Exactly. The lack of a smoking gun is a void. And you really can't ask the public to accept a massive paradigm shift based on an empty vault.
It demands an incredible tolerance for ambiguity from all of us. We basically have proof of the cover-up infrastructure, but we don't have proof of the object being covered up.
Well, let's talk about the object then. Let's move into what is definitely the most highly speculative section of the 2026 document, the speculative tech.
This is where we really have to lean heavily on our filter.
Yes, heavily. Because if we assume that corporate sub-basement exists, what are the scientists allegedly reverse engineering down there?
Right. And again, the claims regarding reverse engineered technology are entirely unverified. But for decades, elements within the UAP community have claimed that sudden leaps in human technology were seeded by non-human discoveries in the 1950s.
Like fiber optics, integrated circuits, lasers.
Right. The claim is that the timeline of those breakthroughs was anomalously fast.
There's even that persistent rumor that the radar-absorbing materials on the B-2 stealth bomber were derived from UAP crash debris.
Which is heavily debated.
And honestly, I have a really hard time with this whole line of thinking. Attributing human scientific breakthroughs to aliens feels incredibly dismissive of the human scientists who spent their entire lives in laboratories earning those discoveries.
Yeah, it does.
Isn't it just human nature to look at a massive technological leap and assume it must be magic or extraterrestrial?
It's an intellectual shortcut, plain and simple. Which is exactly why the stealth bomber and fiber optic claims are largely dismissed even by serious UAP researchers today.
Okay, so what isn't dismissed?
Well, the claims regarding metamaterials warrant much closer scrutiny.
Okay, explain metamaterials. We are talking about isotopic analysis.
Yes. So basically, if you take a piece of magnesium from anywhere on Earth, the ratio of its isotopes, say magnesium-24 to magnesium-26, will be identical.
Because it's from Earth.
Right. That specific ratio was determined by the specific stellar nucleosynthesis, the specific exploding stars that originally formed our solar system.
Okay, tracking.
Now, researchers like the metallurgist Jacques Vallée have analyzed alleged UAP debris using mass spectrometry.
And mass spectrometry basically vaporizes a sample, ionizes the atoms, and shoots them through a magnetic field to weigh them, right?
With incredible precision, yes. And Vallée claims to have found metallic samples where the isotopic ratios deviate wildly from the terrestrial baseline.
Meaning the specific recipe of atoms in that piece of metal literally could not have been cooked in our solar system.
Precisely. If those mass spectrometry results actually hold up to peer review, and I want to stress that is a massive if it removes the need to even debate whether a technology is human or not.
Because the atomic structure itself proves it is off-world.
Exactly.
And then, of course, you have the holy grail of reverse engineering, exotic propulsion.
The big one.
The ability of these UAPs to accelerate instantly, execute right-angle turns at Mach 10, and plunge into the ocean without creating a splash or a sonic boom.
Which completely violates the standard model of aerodynamics as we know it. I mean, they don't use chemical combustion, and they don't seem to interact with the atmosphere to create lift.
Which forces us to talk about Bob Lazar.
We have to.
In 1989, Lazar comes forward, claiming he was a physicist hired to work at Area S4, which is the secretive facility south of Area 51.
Right.
He claimed he was physically hands-on with 9 extraterrestrial craft, attempting to reverse engineer their propulsion systems. And he said the craft manipulated gravity using a stable isotope of element 115.
And for over a decade, the mainstream scientific community basically laughed him out of the room because element 115 simply didn't exist.
Right, until it did.
Exactly. It didn't exist on the periodic table until 2003 when scientists finally synthesized moscovium. So Lazar's prediction of a heavy element in that specific range of the periodic table was remarkably prescient.
But there's a catch, right?
A huge catch. The moscovium we synthesized is highly unstable and decays in a fraction of a second. It does not possess the stable gravity-bending properties that Lazar described.
Right. But to understand what Lazar was claiming mechanically, I always like the trampoline metaphor. Imagine placing a heavy bowling ball on a trampoline.
The fabric of the trampoline bends downward.
Exactly. Lazar claimed the craft's reactor used element 115 to project a gravitational field that actually bent space-time in front of the craft.
So the ship doesn't fly through space, it continually falls into the gravity well it creates.
Which neatly explains the total lack of a sonic boom or crushing G-forces. If the craft is bending the space around it, it's essentially sitting inside a localized bubble.
The space is moving, not the ship.
It's fascinating theoretical physics. But applying our filter here, AARO interviewed 30 individuals specifically regarding Area S4 in these propulsion programs.
And their conclusion?
They concluded there is absolutely zero verified evidence that anyone has successfully reverse engineered this technology.
Which leads to a really crucial geopolitical observation.
Okay, let's zoom out to the global picture then.
If the U.S. has been hoarding this technology for 80 years and supposedly failing to replicate it, what is happening in the rest of the world?
Right, because UAPs don't just hover exclusively over restricted airspace in Nevada. The contrast between how the U.S. handles this and how other sovereign nations handle it is just jarring.
It's night and day. The United States spent the better part of a century actively stigmatizing the topic. I mean, literally threatening pilots who reported sightings with the loss of their flight status.
But France took the exact opposite approach, didn't they?
They did. The French Space Agency operates a department called JIPEN, and they actively investigate UAP reports from citizens and military personnel, and they actually publish their findings transparently.
And in 1999, France produced the Cometa report. And we should stress this wasn't some fringe group.
No, not at all. This was authored by retired high-ranking generals, aerospace engineers, and the former head of the French Space Agency.
Right. And they analyzed over 500 heavily documented military and commercial encounters. They concluded that roughly 5% of cases defied any conventional physical explanation.
But the real bombshell was their conclusion about that 5%.
They explicitly stated the extraterrestrial hypothesis was the most logical, scientifically sound explanation, right?
Yes. And they formally urged the French government to prepare for it.
Which is wild. And you see a similar openness in South America, but honestly, it seems driven largely by the sheer aggression of the phenomena they encounter down there.
The South American cases are deeply physical. Like in 1977, the Brazilian Air Force launched Operation Saucer in the Amazon basin.
Because residents of Caleres were literally being terrorized by luminous objects.
Firing beams of directed energy.
Yeah, causing puncture wounds and severe radiation-like burns on the local populace. The Brazilian military actually sent armed units with medical personnel to document the injuries and photograph the objects.
They weren't investigating mysterious lights in the sky, they were investigating physical assaults.
And Brazil is also home to the Varginha incident in 1996, which is huge.
Varginha is widely considered the Roswell of South America, but with significantly more immediate civilian witness testimony.
Right, because dozens of unconnected residents, including actual police officers, reported encountering distinct non-human biological entities just wandering the city after a reported crash.
And the Brazilian military response was massive. They locked down entire neighborhoods and hospitals.
Didn't military police officer actually capture one of the entities?
He allegedly captured one with his bare hands, and he died days later from a bizarre, entirely unrecognized systemic infection that basically stripped his immune system.
It's horrifying. And this isn't just some localized Brazilian myth. It directly intersected with U.S. intelligence.
Which is the crazy part.
Yeah. In 2024, Kirk McConnell, who spent 37 years working intimately with the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committees, he went on the record.
And what did he say?
He stated that reports mirroring Varginha had absolutely reached the highest levels of the U.S. government. He explicitly named Senator Marco Rubio as having participated in classified SCIF briefings where highly credible intelligence sources testified to direct, first-hand knowledge of non-human entities and crash retrievals occurring internationally.
That brings it right back to the halls of Congress. And, other nations also show varying degrees of transparency. Chile operates CIFARO, an agency that routinely brings in academic scientists to rigorously analyze infrared and radar data.
And the UK maintained an active UFO desk until 2009. They eventually released thousands of pages of unexplained encounters.
But then you look at our primary geopolitical adversaries, Russia and China.
Total black boxes.
Absolute black boxes. The Soviet Union maintained a massive, highly classified UAP investigation apparatus during the Cold War, mostly driven by encounters at their nuclear missile silos.
But today, Russian data is completely inaccessible to the public.
Right. And China presents a slightly different model. The People's Liberation Army has reportedly developed a sophisticated AI-driven sensor network designed specifically to track UAP flight paths across their airspace.
But think about the geopolitical stakes here. UAPs don't respect national borders. If a non-human craft crashed in Siberia or rural China, wouldn't the enormous strategic advantage of reverse engineering that tech have shown up in their military capabilities by now?
You think so?
I mean, if China cracked gravity manipulation, they wouldn't be building traditional aircraft carriers anymore. Are we locked in a silent global Cold War where the US, Russia, and China all have scattered pieces of this technology, but everyone is completely paralyzed, unable to actually turn it on?
This raises an important question about how they actually view the phenomena. You have to view it through their specific strategic lens.
How do you mean?
Well, while the U.S. gets bogged down in debates about extraterrestrials and cover-ups, Chinese intelligence frameworks approach UAPs almost exclusively as potential next-generation U.S. surveillance.
Oh, they think it's us.
Right. They treat it strictly as a kinetic air defense vulnerability. They aren't looking for aliens. They're looking for a U.S. black project that can bypass their radar.
That's a fascinating shift in perspective. But all this global pressure, combined with the whistleblower testimony we talked about, it finally forces the hand of the U.S. government.
It had to break eventually.
Which brings us right up to the present day and the 2026 report, the Pierre Sue era and the legislative push. How did the bureaucracy finally break?
It started with a really brutal legislative fight. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer introduced the UAP Disclosure Act.
And in its original drafting, it was a terrifying piece of legislation for defense contractors, right?
Because it contained a provision for eminent domain.
And just to clarify, eminent domain means the government can legally seize private property for public use.
Exactly. Schumer's bill essentially said, if Lockheed Martin or Battelle is hiding non-human technology in their corporate labs, the federal government has the legal authority to immediately seize it and bring it under direct congressional oversight.
That is an astonishing thing for the Senate Majority Leader to put into writing.
It is. But, unsurprisingly, the defense lobby gutted it. The eminent domain clause was stripped out entirely before the bill passed.
Of course it was. But Congress managed to slip a massive mechanism into the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA.
They mandated a historical overclassification review.
Explain how that shifts the legal landscape, because this is huge.
Historically, if an intelligence agency stamped a document top secret, it stayed secret forever, basically, unless someone actively fought for it in court. The NDAA flipped the legal burden of proof.
Okay, meaning what?
It mandated that for any UAP-related document older than 25 years, the default position is now immediate public release.
Wow.
Right. If an agency like the CIA wants to keep it secret, they now have to legally justify to a review board why releasing a 50-year-old radar track poses a grave threat to modern national security.
That's brilliant. And then the political wildcard drops in February 2026. President Trump issues a directive on Truth Social, ordering the immediate unsealing of UAP records.
And this executive pressure births the PRSU program.
The Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters.
The creation of PRSU was a seismic event. On May 8, 2026, the Department of Defense launches the war.gov UFO portal.
And they dump the first batch of 162 records. And the internet basically broke.
1.7 billion hits.
In just weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the footage was wild. We saw declassified memos discussing saucer-shaped objects pacing nuclear bombers.
We saw internal DoD communications from 2022 regarding a metallic UAP operating over a military base in Iraq.
Yeah, the metallic orb. And we saw that stunning 2024 infrared targeting footage of a massive football-shaped anomaly plunging into the ocean off the coast of Japan without slowing down at all.
There are even declassified transcripts from the Apollo 17 lunar mission discussing anomalous luminescent objects observed in transit.
I mean, the visual evidence was incredibly compelling for the public. But from an analytical standpoint, you really have to look at what PRSU didn't release.
This is where the skepticism comes in.
Yeah, this is my massive pushback on PRSU. Look at the agencies that contributed to that 162 document data dump. It was mostly the Navy and the Air Force releasing sensor footage. Do you know who released absolutely nothing?
The intelligence agencies?
Exactly. The CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office. The true heavyweights of the intelligence community kept their filing cabinets securely locked.
They didn't play ball.
So my question is the PRSU program a genuine act of government transparency, or is it just a calculated pressure release valve?
Giving the public something shiny to look at.
Right. Are they just giving us a fancy website and a bunch of blurry drone videos to pacify us, while the real crown jewels, the biological data, the crash retrieval manifest, stay buried in the USAP subbasement?
Your skepticism is entirely warranted. The intelligence community will always fight tooth and nail to protect their sources and methods.
Because of the tech involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the NSA releases a high-resolution satellite photo of a UAP, they are simultaneously revealing the exact optical capabilities of their classified spy satellites to Russia and China.
Ah, right. It's a double-edged sword.
However, you cannot dismiss the long-term power of that NDAA review we mentioned. The intelligence agencies are currently stalling, sure, but the legal crowbar is firmly wedged in the door. Bureaucracies move slowly, but the statutory requirement to declassify is now the law of the land.
Which perfectly frames where we are going next, knowing exactly what is confirmed, what is alleged by whistleblowers, and what laws are currently forcing the issue. The 2026 report projects the future pipeline.
What is actually likely to happen next?
Right. What does the next decade of this phenomenon actually look like?
The report breaks the timeline into 3 distinct phases. In the near term, the remainder of 2026 into 2027, expect the PSUE program to continue releasing heavily redacted sensor data.
So more of the same on the website.
Yes, but the critical flashpoint will be Congress. Armed with David Grusch's list of hostile and cooperative witnesses, the intelligence committees are highly likely to begin issuing closed-door subpoenas.
Finally.
They're going to drag the program managers and the scientists out of those corporate subbasements and force them to testify under the threat of federal perjury.
Okay, what about the medium term, 2027 to 2030?
This is when the NDAA overclassification review boards truly mature. You have incredibly aggressive civilian scientists, like Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, weaponizing these new laws.
Avi Loeb has been pushing hard on this.
Very hard. Loeb is pushing to forcefully declassify military sensor data from events that occurred in the 1970s and 80s.
Oh, because the sources and methods argument doesn't hold up anymore?
Exactly. The argument is simple. The radar technology the military was using 50 years ago is completely obsolete. Releasing that old UAP tracking data poses zero threat to modern national security.
Would provide civilian scientists with a gold mine of historical kinematic data to analyze.
Right, they can track how these things actually moved.
That's super smart. And what about the long term, 2030 and beyond?
The long term is the ultimate paradigm shift, the total decentralization of data collection.
Meaning taking it out of the government's hands entirely.
Yes. Projects like Loeb's Galileo project are currently building open-source civilian sensor networks.
They're linking together high-resolution optical, infrared, and radio telescopes, right?
Driven by custom AI, specifically trained to filter out birds, drones, and weather and track true anomalies.
Just think about the power of that. For 80 years, we have relied entirely on the military to tell us what is in the sky, simply because only the military had the billion-dollar radar arrays to actually see it.
They had a monopoly on the data.
But technology has democratized. If a network of civilian scientists builds enough of their own advanced sensor arrays, don't they eventually bypass the government entirely?
Yes, they do.
It's like, standing in a windowless room for decades, waiting for a government official to announce whether or not it's raining outside. Eventually, you just build your own window.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And this leads to the concluding thesis of the 2026 report, which they term the middle ground.
The middle ground. Define that for us.
Based on the totality of confirmed military data, radar tracks, and medical profiles, the most scientifically and legally defensible position right now is that something is operating in our atmosphere that current human physics cannot explain.
Something real is there.
Yes. Whether that is a non-human intelligence, some shadow biome of atmospheric plasma we don't understand, or an earth-shattering leap in Black Project drone technology, that remains the unresolved core of the mystery.
Right.
But the crucial takeaway is that physics ultimately will drive disclosure, not government policy.
I love that. Physics drives disclosure.
It has to. If the U.S. or China genuinely has a crashed craft, and if they ever manage to successfully reverse engineer a gravity manipulation drive or a fundamentally new metamaterial, they cannot keep it hidden forever.
Because the moment you use it.
The moment you apply that technology to a practical vehicle and fly it, the physics of how it moves will be observable to civilian instruments. You cannot hide a paradigm-shifting manipulation of space-time. The universe will out the secret.
Man, we have covered a massive expanse of history, law, and physics today. Let me give you, the listener, the mental framework you need to navigate this going forward.
The bottom line.
The bottom line. The historical investigations from Blue Book to RAR are confirmed realities.
Yeah.
The government's deliberate campaign of using UFO myths as a disinformation smokescreen to hide stealth aircraft is a confirmed reality.
Absolutely.
The fact that high-level intelligence officials like David Grusch are testifying under oath about crash retrievals is reality. But as of today, physical, peer-reviewed, public proof of an extraterrestrial spacecraft sitting on a laboratory table remains entirely unverified.
So as the Pershuvi portal continues to release thousands of pages of documents, you have to use this framework.
Look past the blurry videos of lights in the sky.
Look for the mechanisms. Look for the mass spectrometry reports. Look for the subpoenaed testimonies. That is how you distinguish between a bureaucratic distraction and genuine world-altering evidence.
Exactly. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. A thought that kind of turns this entire 80-year narrative on its head.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
We have spent this entire deep dive operating on the assumption that the government's massive infrastructure of secrecy exists to hide a profound discovery.
Right, that they have the ship, they know how it works, and they are keeping it from us to maintain military dominance.
And it's a comforting thought, in a strange way, because it implies someone is in control.
Right, someone is driving the bus.
Exactly. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the relentless classification, the disinformation, the fake hazing rituals, and the corporate shell games weren't designed to hide the fact that they know what these objects are?
Oh, man.
What if the secrecy is designed to hide the terrifying reality that they have absolutely no idea? Imagine the psychological impact on global society if the ultimate disclosure from the most powerful military apparatus in human history isn't, we have alien technology.
It's the ultimate admission of failure.
What if the ultimate disclosure is, these things have been flying over our nuclear silos with impunity for 80 years. They vastly outmaneuver our best fighter jets. We are completely and utterly defenseless against them, and we've been lying to you for a century simply to hide our own impotence.
If the core secret is human vulnerability, that changes the calculus of disclosure entirely.
It really does. Something to keep in mind the next time you look up at a clear night sky. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the 2026 UAP report. Keep questioning the systems around you, demand the data, and we will see you next time.